One of the biggest problems that we're seeing right now that is painfully obvious is just how powerful AIPAC and ADL is in the political arena. They have both major political parties by the balls, and having them essentially try to prove how much more pro-Israel one side is versus the other. And of course, that starts with our president, who not only has sworn full allegiance to Netanyahu and his government, but decided that it was necessary to go on national TV today and say that the Palestinian people are lying about how many of their people have been killed. It does not appear to be, at least from where I stand, and obviously hopelessly upset at Senator Sanders for not even attempting to make some type of an actual stand with his statement today. There does not appear to be anybody other than a handful of the left members of Congress who are really making any type of a firm stand about the genocide that is taking place right now. In fact, it seems like most of them just want to pretend like it's not happening and not even address it. Why do you guys think that they are so tepid about even suggesting that maybe we need a ceasefire in the situation at the bare minimum to at least try to get things started in terms of a peace negotiation?
I mean,
I think maybe if people, oh no, Mark,
no, can you go ahead? I'll wait. Go ahead.
Well, if people, I think that sadly, like, if people make the connection between how a ceasefire saves lives of not just, I mean, it's really sad that we can't just say like Palestinian civilians don't deserve to be killed and that's not enough. But I think that people need to make the connection between a ceasefire being good for not just Palestinians. It's not good for them. It's like that. That's not even the right way to say it. It's stopping the genocide should be enough of a goal. But I think for some people it's not. And the fact is that bombing indiscriminately is not going to be keeping these prisoners, these Israeli prisoners, safe. And we already had some, like there was an Israeli woman on Israeli media. I think they removed her article, but Ali Abu Nima wrote about it at Electronic Intifada. And she talked about how, is the IDF shot at people and killed Israelis. They're not prioritizing saving Jewish life. They pretend that they're guided by, and they're not. It's revenge and ethnic cleansing.
And the Israeli military has a directive. I think it's called a Hannibal Directive.
Yeah.
That's basically like if they take one of ours, kill them all, and even if the hostage dies. Yeah. And they've proven this again and again. So I think they have no intention of saving these hostages. They want to destroy Hamas, and they're willing to murder everyone in the process. And that's their strategy. They have no strategy of getting back hostages.
I don't even think they care about murdering Hamas. I think they want to commit a genocide. I think they want to use those people for manufacturing consent. And I think they stuck them there. And this was obviously something that could be foreseen. And now they're using it to ethnically cleanse people. And if they really and this is what's so disgusting. They're sitting there talking about whether or not they have a ground game. Instead of just cowardly dropping bombs indiscriminately over just random people, to me, it's even more disgusting and more dishonorable. It's like you're not willing to risk any of your people to go in there to go get Hamas. How badly do you want them? You're willing to kill all these innocent people, but you're not willing to risk one of your soldiers to even go in there on the ground and get the hostages.
And Mark, apparently the amount of firepower that has already been dropped on Gaza is the equivalent of the Hiroshima bomb that was dropped in World War II.
Well, I mean, it's more than the firepower used in Vietnam, and I mean, Israel has one intention here. The intention is, whether they get the hostages back or not, the intention is to clear Palestinians out of what is western and northern Gaza and push people to the south and the east, up against the border of Egypt. So what they say, there'll be a buffer. And I think that one of the most important elements in this to me is that there are now a rising number of Jews, especially younger Jews, who say no and don't agree. and say this has to end. That to me is part of the key of ending this. Part of the key, not the whole key. It's part of the key. And I think that this is. I'm not going to get too deep into these weeds here, but I think it's also a lesson of what happens even with the people who experience a millennia of oppression to become the oppressor. And there's a real lesson in that as well. And it's the argument I had today back and forth with people who were supporting Israel was that they kept showing the pictures, and I kept saying 3,000 kids have died. Palestinian kids have been killed. So the numbers of people that we are annihilating is unacceptable on any plane, on any level. And I think that we need, I think that a massive kind of anti-war movement has to begin here, as it is across the globe. And I mean, look, I was emailing back and forth with a friend of mine in Germany today, who is Israeli and who's a real activist and fighting against racism in Israel and left Israel. He and they now live in Germany. And, one of the things we talked about was the fact that the vast majority of almost 1 million Israelis who left Israel are on the left. They're living in Europe. They're living in Africa. They're living in Southeast Asia. They're living in the United States. And I think that the right has just taken hold. An extreme theocratic right has taken hold. Not that anything was ever wonderful before that, but this is the enormity of the power they have at this moment on the right is it has to be kind of exposed and pushed. And I think that it takes a lot to argue against that sometimes, because one of the arguments I've been having is that you can't. No, it's not anti-Semitic to oppose the Israeli government.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? That's a great segue, because one of the things that we have seen, and we've seen this for years, is the equating of anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. They are very quick to throw it, and for the most part, you can't really tell the difference between the two political parties anymore, because it used to be very often there would be the GOP who would throw it at the Dems and they would have to play defense. But now it seems that you have this section of the political left that the Democrats are trying to push as far away from the party as possible and bring in as many of those suburban Republicans. And you're seeing it now play out on social media. You're seeing them all saying, well, I don't really like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but if she gets that Rashida Tlaib out of Congress, I am totally on board with that. So the true colors are starting to show in so many ways. But I'm curious, as from where you guys all stand, as I mentioned before, obviously we have the power of AIPAC, we have the power of ADL and the Democratic Majority for Israel. There's a lot of money to go around. I am wondering if you guys think that there is going to be, not for a lot of people, but for some people, and perhaps some people of considerable consequence, that there will be a political price to pay in 2024 for going along with this.
I think some people will stay home.
You think?
People have been saying that.
Yeah, I'm finding this race very interesting, especially now that RFK is running as an independent. I think that numbers is going to affect on both sides, and I think it definitely keeps it more interesting. But either way, and in any event, and none of that matters as far as the Palestine question, because they're all the same. I
think RFK is right of Netanyahu, actually.
It's possible. He's too far. He's so far right. He can't get his head out of Rabbi Shmuley's tuchus.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, I've made it very clear that there is no occupation in the West Bank. And no matter how often you try to tell me that I'm wrong, even if Dennis Kucinich leaves my campaign in protest, I will not change my position, because
was that why he left? Really?
That's what they say, and I'm willing to believe it.
That was really good. That was good. You could take that on the road.
He's got a bunch of them.
Well, hey, listen, I haven't gotten to Bernie yet, because he's getting his too. The problem is that I actually went to RFK's announcement in Philadelphia, and it was a very interesting group. There was about 3,000 or 4,000 people that were there. He had a crowd, there's no question, and he's going to be a factor in this race. But with that said, the people that were there was a considerable amount of Zionists within the group. And this was before October. Well, this actually is on October 9th, I think. And his speech, while it wasn't saber rattling in any capacity, there's no question where he's trying to, find his niche. There's a lot of people in this country with a lot of money that he's focused on, that he believes that if he leans into them very hard on this issue, that he's going to get them to come to his side. And I know there are people who believe that he, by some happenstance, is just going to pull more votes away from Trump. I don't believe that, because I think that the Democratic Party over the past 7-8 years, ever since the summer of 2015, they made a political calculation when it came to Bernie Sanders that the party is not going in this direction. And if that means that we must get the suburban Republicans into our party and push the working class left out completely, even if it means them going over to Donald Trump, then so be it. And that's ostensibly what they did, which is why you're seeing this whole reaction now of, well, is he going to take from that side? Is he going to take from that side? I don't know. To me, it's all a toss-up, but this is an issue for working people in this country where they're not fucking around. They are dead serious that if you support the genocide, there will be a political price to pay. Now, how big of a price? I don't know, because it doesn't seem like the political left can really get their act together, especially when it comes to the working class. Fantastic job by Sean Fain and UAW, but we obviously need to see a lot more of that in this country. And if we can unite on this particular issue, which I think we can, I think that would pay a lot of dividends, especially for those that are just given a blank check in this case to Israel, as well as any of the, just sidestepping the whole issue of how many people are going to be killed. I do think that change could happen, but we really need to put our foot down as far as this is concerned.
I'm just jumping for a second. I think that, first of all, my analysis of what's happening in the presidential race, I don't think RFK is going to be much of a factor, period. Not just I personally think he's a maniac and out of his mind, but I don't think he's going to be much of a factor. And I think that when you look at the history of politics in this country and presidential politics in this country, unless Americans are on the ground fighting, Americans are dying, people really don't give a shit about anything that's happening overseas, period. And so who cares? The Arab American community cares, and the Jewish American community cares. Those are the communities that really care deeply, which is why Biden's playing the number he's playing to ensure that the majority of Jewish people in this country who vote Democrat are going to vote Democrat again. And I think that calculation has some flaws in it, but I think that's the real flaws. But I think that's the process that's taking place here, so I'm not sure how much this will play out in terms of what the future holds, in terms of domestic politics, except in areas like New York, LA, Baltimore, other places that have huge Jewish populations that are really concerned and watching this, whether they oppose what Netanyahu's government doing or supports it. I mean, that's where the fight's taking place there. But I don't think it'll affect the presidential campaign at all. And I think the more Kennedy speaks, the more insane he sounds. And I think I think people are just not going to go for him.
Yeah.
What about the Muslim population of Dearborn, Michigan, that have made it very clear that they are not supporting Biden in the election?
No, that's why I think it's the Arab American, Muslim American community, and Jewish American community that really are involved in this and care about it deeply and emotionally, but the rest of the country doesn't.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.